Okay, I don't consider myself the expert on business advice, but I can say that if you're thinking about starting a creative business, I want to scream these 3 things at you and make sure that you hear them first, because I genuinely wish that someone had done that for me. Hey, I'm Becca with The Happy Ever Crafter, and I've been running this business, doing and teaching modern calligraphy and other fun art stuff for just about 5 years at the time of this recording. When I started this, I had absolutely 0 experience with what it meant to run your own business. I had a full-time job at the time, and I'm pretty scrappy and I figured it out as I went, but looking back, there are actually a few things that I really wish I had been prepared for. I've got 2 sort of more fundamental conceptual things, and then I have 1 really practical one. If you learn nothing else from me in this episode, seriously, just hear point number 3. It would have saved me so much time and so much stress. Okay, thing number 1 is that turning your hobby into a business means you no longer have a hobby. And I'll be honest, this one actually didn't hit me until about 2 years in, when I had a massive burnout. So if you're hearing me say this and you're like, yeah, that won't happen to me, just trust me and take this in. You probably started learning calligraphy or whatever hobby it is, if you somehow found me and you're not into calligraphy, as a fun pastime. You enjoy making cards, you enjoy making crafts, you picked up a brush pen for fun in your spare time. At least that's how it happened to me. And then somewhere along the line, you got absolutely obsessed with it, you practiced obsessively, you got good enough that someone even asked you to make them something. And that's when it clicked. You could totally do this for money and make a business out of it. So that story is pretty much exactly word for word what happened to me. At first, when I was doing it for money, it was really exciting, it was really fun. And then over time, there was like this slow creep of resentment. And I feel crappy even saying that because I love what I do. But no longer was it something that I did because I wanted to, it was something I did because I had to. And the very nature of that changes the love you originally have for that hobby. Your hobby is no longer a hobby, it's a job now. And again, it wasn't until a few years in when someone actually asked me what I do in my spare time, like what my hobbies were, that it really hit me. I used to say, I do calligraphy, I do crafts, I do scrapbooking in my spare time. But now that it's my job, I realized in that moment that my hobby was no longer a hobby. And listen, this is not to say that I don't love what I do, because I do. I'm so lucky to be able to do something I love for my job. It's seriously incredible. So I'm not discounting that. But the moral of the story here is that you just really have to think on it for a minute. If you're okay with losing that hobby you love so much in favor of making it into a business, because really it's not for everyone. I even had a conversation with a friend the other day who was telling me that she realized she no longer wanted to do this for money because she was starting to resent it and she didn't love doing it anymore. So she quit doing it for money and she's just doing it for herself, and that's totally okay. So that's just something that you personally need to sit down and think about, knowing that you're gonna lose that hobby. All right, thing number 2. And thing number 2 is sort of similar. So thing number 2 is that running a creative business is actually only creative like a quarter of the time. And that's probably being generous. So I remember having these visions of how wonderful it would be to wake up and just roll into my studio and make stuff and then hand it off to clients and make money and call it a day. And it's not like I'm completely oblivious, and I'm sure you're not either. I knew there would be a lot more to it than that, but I'll be honest, I did not expect that the actual creating part would be so much less than I imagined. When you're running your own business, the business parts are really the majority of what you do. Answering emails, communicating with clients, managing your website, researching, bookkeeping, ordering inventory, networking, managing social media. Oh my God, managing social media. There's just so much, especially in the first few years, that are brand new skills that you have to learn, and it takes you 10 times longer than you're gonna think. Another thing to think about here is that this is even more true if you're doing this as a side hustle. So you may have a full-time job and come home ready to do client work and sit down and make a seating chart or something, but you have to remember that it's still gonna take you just as much time to communicate with clients, to answer emails, and to do all the businessy things, which gives you even less time creating. So it's just something to be mindful of. So understanding before you decide whether or not you want to jump into this as a business, that it won't be all fun and art and playtime. That when it is, it really is the best. So again, not discrediting that. And lastly, my practical tip, Thing number 3 is that the scary stuff wasn't actually as scary as I thought, and I should have done it way sooner. And by this, I mean 2 specific things. The first was registering my business, and the second was understanding personal and business finances and taxes. I was terrified of that. So let me back up for a sec. When I say scary, I mean I hadn't set up anything yet. I had barely even decided that this was going to be a business when someone saw that I was doing it for fun and asked me to make them some invitations. And I was terrified that the second I did anything legitimate for my business, like accepting money from this client, that I was somehow breaking the law and the tax man was going to come after me and take my house or something because I'd somehow broken some sort of running a business rule I hadn't known about. I know it sounds silly, but I was like legitimately terrified of this. And then that feeling that I would do something wrong held me back from actually figuring out how to do all of these things for a really long time. So finally, after probably about a year of just accepting money and assuming I was doing everything wrong, I found a bookkeeper through word of mouth who was super nice and not judgmental at all. And I was just really honest with my fears and asked her to help me figure out what I needed to do to make a plan. So when it came to thing number 1 that I was really scared of, registering my business, turns out it literally just meant filling out a single form online and paying $30 to my province. So obviously this will be different depending where you live, province, state, whatever, but I just want everybody to know that everyone I've talked to about this after agrees that this is a very simple process and not something to be afraid of. So just know that it's not actually that challenging. And then thing number 2 that I was scared of, accepting money and the tax man and all of those things, turns out this is really simple too. I had the notion in my head that this was going to be really complicated, and I guess it actually is just a couple of tax forms that you fill out and you claim your income properly at the end of the year. So it's pretty straightforward. What I did learn about accounting though, and I really want to pass this on, is that I really should have separated my business and my personal finances right off the bat. It was a real nightmare to go through everything a year later, having to go through all my transactions and all my accounts and my credit cards and figure out what was a client payment and what I was purchasing supplies and all of that jazz. So my super duper practical advice to you is 2 things. 1, look up business registration and insert province name or state here and then do it. And then number 2 is to separate your accounts. So this can be as simple as making another checking account in your current bank account and having that be your business one. And then maybe even signing up for a credit card in your own name. So you have a credit card for your personal purchases and a credit card for your business purchases. You can also just make a fully separate business account if you want to, but again, I was scared of that, which I didn't need to be. It's not that scary. So once you have personal and business separated in accounts, just use the separate accounts and cards to make all your purchases like supplies and stuff and to accept client payments so that when you go at the end of the year to do your taxes, you know what was a business payment, what was a personal payment, and which ones you were spending money out of for different things. This will save you so much time later, I promise. Again, it doesn't have to be scary. This is something I totally screwed up in the beginning, and I just like, if I could only pass on one thing, I think that would be it. But side note, if even all of the things I just said overwhelm the crap out of you like they did to me, then find a bookkeeper or an accountant that you trust and just sit down with them and make them a plan. Pay them their hourly rate to just sit down and help you, because for me, that really gave me a lot of peace of mind, and I think that that might be the case for some of you too. Okay, there you have it. My 3 sort of 4 things. 1, make sure you're okay with losing your hobby to turn it into a job. Number 2, understand that you won't be doing all creative work if you're turning this into a business. And number 3, register your business and separate your personal and business bank accounts. That's it. So I hope this was helpful, and I would love to hear from you in the comments if you have a creative business and you have some sort of thing like this that you wish you were told in the beginning. I'm always just curious what other people screwed up or was scared of in the beginning. And if you're just starting, I would love to know if this was helpful for you. If you want more content like this, just leave me a comment down below. And lastly, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because they put out 2 new videos every single week. And right now I'm gonna link to another video that's business related that I think you'll enjoy. And I'll see you over there.